Good morning. Pray you're having a great start to a good week. It's a beautiful day outside. Welcome to this Monday Minute. I'm going to read to you this morning a verse that often you don't preach on or teach on. It's Galatians chapter 6 and verse 11. Paul here is writing this, and he says, "You see what large letters I have written to you in my own hand." Paul usually didn't write in his own hand. He would dictate the letters to someone else who would write it. But this particular letter he wrote himself, and he wrote it in large letters, indicating that he probably had poor eyesight. You think back to where he says, I prayed to God, I had a thorn in the flesh, and I prayed to God 3 times for God to take it away. And God said, "No, Paul, I'm going to leave it with you. My grace is sufficient for you because my power is made perfect in your weakness." And Paul probably had that poor eyesight from when he was first called. He was on the road to Damascus, and Jesus came and appeared to him in a bright light, and Paul was knocked down and blinded. And later he was in Damascus, and God sent Ananias over to pray for Paul, and scales fell off his eyes, and Paul could see. But I think God left a reminder to Paul that Paul, this is where you came from, and he didn't completely heal Paul's eyesight. And that's why Paul had to write in such large letters. And I think of that, Paul had to push through his weaknesses. He had to push through maybe things he was ashamed of from his past. He had to push through maybe a limitation in his eyesight to fulfill the call of God on his life. But when he pushed through, God anointed him, God empowered him, God helped him to be effective in what God had called Paul to do. And the same in our lives. We all have weaknesses. Maybe we have a past we're ashamed of. We've done things that we wish we hadn't done, or said things we wish we hadn't said. And we're ashamed of those things. And we have to push through those memories and knowing that God's grace is sufficient for us. Maybe we have physical limitations. We're not good at something like someone else. We don't do this, or maybe we have poor eyesight or something. I had a pastor friend who was blind, and he pastored a church and did a good job. Even though he was blind, he had to push through that physical weakness. And I encourage you, God's called you, God will empower you. Push through your weaknesses, push through your past, put your trust and faith in God, and his grace will be sufficient for you, and his power will be made perfect in your weaknesses, and you will accomplish what he asks you to do because he is with you and he will empower you. That's the Monday Minute. You have a great week. God bless.